Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with another scientifically developed episode specially created to make heads explode. And tonight, I'm here with Emmanuel Goldstein, and we're going to talk about a very evil man, a man who was called the Hitler of the Holy Land, the the Führer of Palestine, the Hajj, Muhammad Amin al-Husseini. He was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. He was the political and religious leader of the Palestinians, and he was a Nazi. He volunteered for the Nazis. He moved to Berlin to be a Nazi. He raised Nazi Muslim troops. The largest Nazi SS division was the Muslim division. And we're going to talk about this man and the fact that the Nazis were literally that the Palestinians were literally Nazis. So welcome, Emmanuel. Good to have you back. Please introduce yourself and the topic of today. Over to you.
Well, you just said it. You already did a short video about Husseini. But I told you that's a good introduction, but it's so much worse than what you covered in that short video. It's yeah, he's pretty bad. I mean, he met with Hitler and basically told Hitler to his face that he's not being he's being too soft. He's not being stern enough with the Jews. Basically. And told that to his face. So yeah, so he's pretty evil. Yeah.
It's interesting. Netanyahu some years ago was talking about Hajj Amin al-Husseini and said that the idea came from this man, and he was vilified for it. But as far as I know, it is true.
Yes and no. I don't agree with Netanyahu. I don't. I agree and disagree. If he's, I think what he said was that, or what he was trying to say is that basically Husseini gave the Nazis the idea for the Holocaust.
No, they didn't. The Nazis came up with it.
Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. They
it was Martin Luther that gave them that idea.
Yeah, a lot of people came up with that plan long before Husseini. So they were always going to commit genocide. So Husseini didn't give the Nazis the idea of committing genocide, but he did influence them in the way they were going to commit that genocide. Because the original plan was was basically it didn't have to. How shall I put this? How is this going on YouTube?
We're live right now on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Well,
I'm always
the original
afraid.
plan was to send the Nazis.
Can we talk about such horrible things on YouTube?
We have to be very careful how we say it because YouTube already doesn't like my channel because of the topics that I discuss. So we have to be very cautious, especially with this one. But the original Nazi plan was to take all the Jews and put them in Madagascar, which at the time was a very undeveloped island. It had no resources, and they were supposed to work the land until they died. So basically they'd have no water, no food, and they would starve to death on Madagascar. That was the original plan, but they couldn't implement that. So they moved to Plan B. And they were originally planning to do certain things, and then eventually, because of time and other ideological reasons, they made alterations. So back to you.
Yeah, dear human sensors and dear algorithms and AI at YouTube, we are both very much against the Nazis. We are discussing this topic in a historical context, and we are discussing this critically, and we in no way endorse any of these horrible crimes that the Nazis committed. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, as you said, the original plan, well, the way the Nazi ideology works is basically that well, the Jews don't necessarily have to be exterminated right away, right? But what's important from a National Socialist perspective is to get them out of Germany, and to get them actually not just out of Germany, but get them out of Europe, prevent them from having influence in the Western world, and maybe even get them to their own little country in Madagascar, or hey, if they want to have Israel so bad, have them establish a state there, call it Israel and whatever. The Nazis would have been cool with that, and that was their plan. They were originally even helping them to go there, and to even have their own state there. They were happy with that, just as long as they're not in Germany. It was Husseini who intervened with that plan, who changed that plan, because he was not cool with that. He was, he made it very clear that, and he even oh god, it's so difficult to talk about. There was even the case of children. There was even a whole bunch of children that the Red Cross wanted to help get to what now is Israel, and and the Nazis were going to agree with that. They were going to let the Jewish children go and expel them to the Middle East. It was Husseini who intervened, and and made it very clear that's not okay. Sending Jews to Palestine, that is not okay. You can't have Jews in Palestine. He was always fighting against the Jews in Palestine. He was, committing genocide against the Jews in Palestine before the Nazis were even a thing. And so he made it very clear. No, this isn't gonna work. You can't send them to the Middle East. And so, basically the train was diverted and they were sent to Auschwitz instead. And that was one of the things that Husseini is directly responsible for. One of the many, many things he's directly responsible for.
Right. And you said also that the German language texts are much more complete than the information available in English. And I'm assuming the Arabic texts are the same. But you said there's a lot of data available or content in German that's not publicly available in English right now.
Yeah, well, I think this book, for example, I don't think, oh, well, first off, it's not available in English at all, but also it's not available on the internet, because nowadays, my daughter is 15, and I had to explain to her what a library is. She didn't know what a library was. I mean, she heard of books. She knew there were like physical books, and they had like an ornamental function. I don't think she ever read a physical book, but she knew you could place them like on shelves and they looked good. So she was familiar with the concept of physical books, but she really seriously, she didn't know what a library was. I had to explain the concept of a library and how that worked. So nowadays people do their research with the internet, or even with AI, or at best they do it like with Wikipedia or something. They don't read physical books anymore, but there's a lot of historical books that are not on the internet.
Right. So tell us about this book. You said this one is very, very important.
Well, there's a whole bunch of them that are really important. Actually, this is supposed to be his biography. Was published in. It has a lot of beautiful pictures of, well, mostly of Hosseini, of course. And was published in 1943. By the Nazis. And it's supposed to be his biography, but it's really not. I'm just gonna, okay, to give you an idea. He was It's his biography. It's supposed to be his biography. Keep that in mind. Right?
Right.
But here are the chapters. Here are the chapters. First chapter is the Holy City. Second chapter, Islam. Third chapter, the Arabs. Fourth chapter, die Bünde, the coalitions, meaning the
Yeah.
coalition
Allies.
between.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next chapter, the man, meaning Husseini. Then the fighter, again, meaning Husseini. And now, next chapter, the Jews. And then the chapter after that, and the next chapter is and the English people. So it says it's like one chapter is the Jews, the next chapter is and the English. Yeah. Yeah, and the final
They
chapter
had a
is
problem with the British because the British had British Palestine as a mandate. What year was that published?
43.
43. So this sounds like a manifesto, not a biography.
Well, Mein Kampf is supposedly a biography, right? It's that kind of biography. You have, I think the first chapter in Mein Kampf is called like My Childhood. So Hitler was supposed to tell people about his childhood, but he never does. He talks about everything but him. Well, he does talk about himself, but it's not a biography, and this is the same kind of biography, just like Hitler with Mein Kampf. He's pretending to write a biography, but it's really just an excuse to hate on the Jews, and that's what this is about. It's all, and in case you couldn't tell by the chapters, it's mostly about how great the Arabs are and the Muslims, and how horrible the Jews would be, and a little bit about how great he himself is, but it's mostly about how horrible the Jews would be.
Right. Yeah. I've just been showing some photos of Hajj Muhammad Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Here he's with SS Commander Heinrich Himmler. And I believe this is him.
That's literally, well, not quite. That's almost the title of the book. I don't know if you can see it. So it says in big letters, Amin al-Husseini.
Großmufti von Palästina.
Großmufti von Palästina, genau.
The Grand Mufti of Palestine. Yes, he was the Grand Mufti. So he literally was a Nazi. This is him at, I believe, Bergen-Belsen camp. This was an extermination camp.
That's him with Martin Luther.
Yes, yeah, the guy named after him. Yeah, I don't have the captions with this one, but that was the extermination camp.
After watching your videos on the other Martin Luther, I'm conflicted as to who was more anti-Semitic. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Originally, I thought this Martin Luther here would be the more anti-Semitic Martin Luther, but now I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah. No, this is him with Adolf Hitler. And then, of course, we have photos of him here with his SS troops. These are Muslim Nazi troops you've got here. Muslim troops.
Yes, I got the same photo. I got the same photo, but where they're bowing down, like, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I've got some crazy videos of, and you see these are white German Nazi troops, and they're busy doing the Islamic prayer. It's crazy. These are white Germans. Ethnic Germans. It's crazy.
Well, some of them are ethnic Germans. They're from Bosnia, right?
Yeah, but there's and you see this guy giving the Nazi salute. Here he is again, I think, with Himmler.
Go one photo. Go up, back. Go back. Yes, this one. I got this one as well. I got this one. I sent it to you in color, actually. And the color photo is nicer because in the color photo you can see that they're what do you call their heads? I'm good about I'm good with the history of the Nazis. I'm not good with the history of Islam. What do you call it's a fez, right? It's a fez.
It's a what? The fez, yeah, the fez.
Yeah, correct. Fez. Right. So those are actually red. You can see it on a black and white photo, but I have the color version, and those are red. Those are actually red. They had two. Some people say no, they were gray, but they had two different versions. They had They had like the battlefield version. That one was gray, and then they had a red version for their for the dress uniforms. So that's a dress uniform. So those fasces would actually be
Yeah.
red. So
And
they're
this
just
is,
actual fasces, red fasces.
yep. And this is a
Right, and this
death
is the 13th SS Division Hancha. That was the Muslim division, and as you said, that was pretty much the biggest, or at least one of the biggest, but very likely the biggest SS division.
right.
It had at least, probably more, 20,000 people, and
Probably
then
close to
overall there were almost
30 plus thousand.
overall there were over almost 100,000 Muslim volunteers. But just in that one division, there were well over 20,000 people, and that was an SS division. Keep that in mind. So it wasn't the Wehrmacht. They didn't join the Wehrmacht. The
Yeah.
Wehrmacht was the regular army. The SS was not the regular army.
The Nazis
The
on
SS
private military
was
force.
specifically created by Hitler. It was an ideological troop. So basically, if you joined the SS, you were a Nazi. You know, if you were in the Wehrmacht, you were not necessarily a Nazi. You know, it could be that you just you were conscripted, and even if you wanted to fight, you would join the Wehrmacht. You would only join the SS if you want to support the Nazis directly. And so they were very ideologically indoctrinated into
Right.
National
Okay,
Socialism.
here's a
And you
question.
can see that. If can you see what? No, I
No,
still
just a
need
question. I wanted to ask you a question. I mean, do people really think that he?
Mhm.
Something odd happened. Welcome back. I mean, what do you think Hitler and the Mufti would be discussing? Would this be a neutral topic?
Yeah, in the sources I sent to you, it actually says what they were discussing.
Okay, yeah,
they
let's have a look at those. I just want to go to a couple more photos just to give people some context here, and then this is him giving the Nazi salute again, giving the Nazi salute again. Islam and the Nazi Germany's war. Hitler of the Holy Land, another book about this guy. He was a murderous man. Okay, yeah, so let's go to your files. What file shall we start with first? Or just the photo?
Yeah, but we can go to. Well, I have the picture on my files as well.
You share your screen.
Let's do the colorized. I wasn't finished talking about the photo, so let's do the colorized version of the photo.
Sure. Share your screen. If you can share your screen, or do you want me to?
I haven't prepared it.
Okay. Now let's go. I will try and do it from my side. These are your photos from your archive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go to the color one. Go to the color one. The same one we looked at. Now go on. Oh yeah, here you can see when they're bowing. The same photo that you showed, but here's when they are bowing down. Okay, go on.
There we go.
Okay, so here you have the same photo but colorized, and I still wanted to talk about that photo. Right, so you already showed the insignia of the 13th SS Division, but look at what they're reading. They're reading a magazine or pamphlet or whatever it is, and it's called Islam und Judentum. Yeah, I think everyone knows
Islam and Judaism. Yeah.
No, not Judaism. Well, yeah, I guess you could translate it. Now that I think about it,
Jewishness.
Yeah,
it's like when woke talk about whiteness, Jewishness.
Yeah, I guess you could. I never thought about that. I guess you could translate it as. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess so. And that was actually written by him.
Really?
And it's again. I also put that in the sources. I maybe you can make that available to make the things I send available to people. Because I found an English translation of this very pamphlet that they're reading. There is actually Muslims, very nice of them. Muslims made an English translation of Husseini's pamphlet. and yeah, and in it, and this was, this was for the Muslims in the division, and not just in the Muslims in the division. That was, for all the Muslims that were listening to him, and he was the Grand Mufti of Palestine. He was basically the leader of Palestine. So a lot of Muslims were listening to him, and he was. He was basically trying to get them to support the National Socialists, and the argument was that um, that the National Socialists are fighting against the Jews, and therefore, as Muslims, they should support that, and they should also fight against the Jews. And then he further argued for that by giving examples from the Sunnah, and from the Hadith, and from Prophet Muhammad directly, and showed how Muhammad was fighting against the Jews and so on, and how, as Muslims, it is their duty to do that as well.
Right.
So he was directly in that pamphlet, and and it's in the sources. You can read the English translation. You can directly see it. He's directly arguing from the Sunnah, and saying that if you believe, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but the bottom line is that if you believe in the Sunnah, then it's your duty to support the National Socialists.
Wow. It's if you believe in the Sunnah of Muhammad, you have to join. And this is the Grand Mufti of Palestine.
Yeah, and he's very well educated. He knows the Sunnah. He gives specific examples from the time of Muhammad, and is telling, and he's making a good argument. I'll be honest. I don't want to support him in any way, but he has a point there. I mean, for me, the point is that, well, even Muhammad was very much anti-Semitic, right? But yeah, he was, right. So yeah.
I
mean,
and
he was even giving the genocide, because, as you know, Muhammad committed genocide against the Jews even back then, and he was even totally admitting that and giving that as an example, and as an example to follow.
Okay, crazy. Yeah, I mean, it says in this article how the Nazis helped to inspire Hamas, and there's a lot of evidence to show that the Hamas was definitely. Notice this one, Al Arabiya News. This is not a Western news agency. The Nazi roots of the Muslim Brotherhood.
He was one of the founders and instrumental in creating and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. And he funneled money to the Muslim Brotherhood from Germany. First, the Germans were doing it without him. They were already, when he was still in Palestine, the Germans were already supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. But then, when the Grand Mufti came to Germany, he directly supported them with money from the Nazis, and sent it over to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Again, that's all in the sources.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is very much tied to the Nazis, and that influence leaked into the Middle East. We are having a lot of people reporting that they have serious buffering issues. They're having serious transmission problems with this stream in the UK, especially. And in the EU.
Oh yeah, that's just no, that's not my issue, or your, and it's not your issue. That's just the how shall I put this? Well,
YouTube doesn't like the topic.
It's the form of censorship that the UK implements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
Mufti because it works fine for me, right? I'm in Germany. I can say, right? You're in Poland, right? I can say that.
Yeah.
You're in Poland. I'm in Germany. It works fine for us, right?
Yeah, it's working fine for me right now, but I'm not seeing any problems this end. Although
I don't have any problems in this.
We did have one disconnect for a couple of seconds. We both got kicked out of the studio for a second. But yeah, this is the Mufti of Jerusalem and the Nazis, the Berlin Years by Klaus Gensiker. So there's a lot of evidence of these two guys Islam and Nazi Germany's War by David Mortadel. And there's just so much of this that is not being discussed. You know, why Hitler wished he was Muslim. The Führer admired Ataturk's subordination of religion to the state and his ruthless treatment of minorities. That's in the Wall Street Journal, of all things, 2015. Yeah, crazy stuff. Just thought I'd share that with everyone. Yeah, should we go through some of the other photos as well?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go back through? So, what would you like to go through next? More of the photographs?
So that doesn't have to be in a particular order. Okay, so that's okay. So should we? Okay, then which one should we talk about? Okay, there isn't too much to talk about in this one. It's an icon. You can get This is on. No, go back. Go back. Okay, so we're gonna talk about this one real fast. This is actually an item I found on eBay. You can, if you want to, you can buy this on eBay. It's on eBay right now. You can buy this, and it's basically, well, what is it? An icon in Christianity, you would call that an icon, right?
Yeah, you know, I just had a message on WhatsApp from someone in South Africa asking if the powers that be have blocked the stream.
Yeah, I'm sure they have in the UK.
This is South Africa though. That's now coming up.
The UK managed to out Nazi Germany, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. So I have a lot of people can't see. I'm in Germany. I can't see anything. That's wow. I mean, yeah, there's lots of people. I'm not sure if that means she can't see any problems or she can't see the stream. So yeah, we're having a lot of people that are having issues. Yeah.
Oh dear. So you're not allowed to talk about that.
Now, this guy's interesting. Rashid al-Ghalani, right? He conducted a coup in Iraq. And basically they took over the government, and these guys were pro-Nazi and pro-fascist. They're pro the Italian.
Well, he and Husseini as well. Husseini was established as the leader, as the
really. I didn't know that. I didn't realize he was involved in this.
Yeah, no, he was the head of government for a month.
I did not know. Good grief, the things you find out. Wow. Yeah, Villainous is right. Lloyd hasn't been attacked this strong by YouTube for ages. You're right. I used to get this often. It's been a long time. Thank you. Well, yeah. So yeah, I mean, so here you've got this literal Nazi general. He was promoted to general amongst the Nazis. He went to Germany, volunteered as a Nazi, got promoted to general, and then he's involved with a coup in Iraq that puts a Nazi-friendly government in power in Iraq. Insanity, and he's involved there as he's in charge. Good grief. So you know what's interesting? If you look at Operation Paperclip, now Operation Paperclip, for those who don't know, it was the operation by which the Americans, after the war, took 1,400 German scientists from Germany to America, because obviously they didn't want the Russians to have them, and they had to make sure that they were at the forefront of technology, especially the nuclear bomb. So of course, what you have is lots and lots, especially the late 90s, early 2000s, you had lots of conspiracy theories about the fact that 1,400 Nazis were taken to America, and therefore America's actually a Nazi country, influenced heavily by these Nazis. These were scientists, not politicians. These were physicists, right? Weapons specialists, not politicians. However, few people discuss the fact that Egypt alone took in 6,000 Nazis. Not one, not two, 6,000 Nazis. That is a whole lot more than were taken in by the Americans.
You mentioned Operation Paperclip. Husseini, after the war, Husseini was involved in Operation Odessa. Same thing, but it's Husseini funneling senior Nazis into Muslim countries. Help them escape.
Syria, Jordan, Egypt. So if America is corrupt for having 1,400 scientists, then what is Egypt like if it took 6,000 administrators? Now, this guy, I can't remember his name offhand, he escaped to Egypt. He converted to Islam and became a highly respected Muslim living in Egypt under a Muslim name like Muhammad Saif al-Hasbara, whatever. What you pick the name, I don't know. I read about this guy a couple of weeks ago. I was reading the biography of this guy. And so you have thousands of Nazi officers, Nazi administrators, government employees going to Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, whatever, converting to Islam and living as Muslims.
Yeah,
And this is not a problem.
It's the perfect escape route and the perfect cover. You even get to change your name.
Yeah, you get to change your name and you get protected by the Muslims. The Muslims weren't expelling Nazis. The Muslims were inviting them in. The Muslims were protecting the Nazis. The Nazis were welcome. Nazis welcome here on their little flags at the airport. Nazi refugees welcome here. Why is this not being discussed? Because literally these countries were flooded. Everyone goes, well, South America, they went to Argentina, like the top 3 Nazis went to Argentina. No, tens of thousands went to the Middle East. Why is that not a problem?
And they had a lot of influence there. These terrorist organizations that we have to deal with to this day were heavily influenced by Husseini and by other National Socialists.
Right. Yeah, for those guys having problems on YouTube, you can check out my X account at Lloyd De Jongh, my first name and surname, and also on Rumble. Okay, same, Lloyd De Jongh, just my name and surname. If you're having a problem there, yeah, I mean, this is insanity. Any comments on this photograph?
Well, that was their first. They actually had a lot of meetings, but that was their first meeting, and it was televised. And even in that meeting, they already directly talked about the final solution.
Wow. So I mean, this guy didn't waste any time. So let me just get to this.
It was very important to Husseini, because as we talked about, the initial plan of the Nazis was actually to expel the Jews, and so they were fine with expelling them to the Middle East. But it was Husseini who insisted that that's not an option, and who insisted that the plan was why was what's his face Rommel, why was Rommel fighting for sand in Africa? There's nothing there, why and Rommel was probably the best general, not just in Germany and not just in World War II, but like the best general like ever.
Tactician, yeah.
And Hitler had Rommel, his best general by far, fighting for sand in the desert. Why? Because the ultimate plan was to reach Israel, to reach Palestine.
And the plan was to go there and kill.
And then the plan was that that Amin al-Husseini would return as he was the head of Palestine, but under the British, and then the British expelled him, right? Because he was too extreme, right? And he was committing genocide even back then, so the British expelled him. He had to flee from the British.
Yeah.
So the plan was to reach, the Nazis planned to reach Palestine, expel the British, place Husseini as the head of Palestine again, and then Husseini, and that was why he was here having these meetings, because Husseini requested to have free reign to deal with the Jews once that happens, and Hitler gave his permission, and so then the plan changed from expelling the Jews to extermination, and yes, Husseini's request was instrumental in that.
So Mr. Adolf listened to him and decided, yes, the hatred of this particular group is so strong that they will invade and take that land, and then they will kick the British out, and they will slaughter the group that they didn't like. That's crazy.
Right, right. And Husseini insisted on that.
Wow.
Initially, the Nazis would have been fine with expelling them, and they would even have been fine with them living in Israel and creating their own state there, as long as they're not living in Germany, right? And they were even initially they were even helping the Jews to settle in Palestine. But it was Husseini who was totally against that, because even under British rule, he was already actively involved in exterminating the Jews in Palestine. That's why the British, that kicked him out, because he was already committing genocide, even under British rule.
Right. Let me see if I can find anything on Husseini in this one. Here we go. Yeah, the Palestinian Jews' very existence was under direct threat because of the presence of the Einsatzkommando of the security police and the Sicherheitsdienst, security service dienst, assigned to the Africa Corps. And this had been until recently completely overlooked by academic researchers. So there was a dedicated action unit, this Einsatzkommando, that were tasked with, once they reached Palestine or Israel, their job was to, exterminate.
No. You're interpreting what you're reading wrong. They were already doing that even before that they were reaching. They were doing that. They had covert units already committing genocide against the Jews, even before the Nazis ever reached it, and the Nazis never reached it. But of course, if they had, then Husseini, the plan was to insert Husseini as the head of Palestine again, and then have Husseini. Well, it was his wish to get rid of all the Jews, so they would have given Husseini free reign to get rid of all the Jews.
Yeah,
and that was the plan, and that was why the Africa campaign by Rommel was so important for the Nazis, because they wanted to grant Husseini his wish and wanted to reinstate him as head of Palestine. So that's why it was so important for them to reach that during the Africa campaign, and also that ensured the support of Husseini, and like we already said, Husseini helped the Nazis a lot, and he helped he helped get 100,000 volunteers fighting for the Nazis. So his help was very substantial. He was very important to the Nazis because through him they were able to get the maybe not the support of all Muslims, but they were able to get the support of a lot of Muslims. So that's why Husseini was so important, and pleasing Husseini was so important.
You know what's interesting? There's a small point here. It's something I've read about. I haven't done anything in depth, but I've noticed several times little blips on the radar where the Brits somehow seemed either very complacent or conveniently absent or conveniently didn't do something. But when these attacks were going on, the Brits were always somehow at home flossing their cat or washing their dog. And they somehow always seemed to be not available when the Jews were being attacked by the Arabs. So there's a lot of that went on. And it even hinted at here that there was some kind of involvement. And of course, Husseini was an agitator. He fled to Syria. And he then somehow escaped France after the war and ended up again safely in Egypt and other places, Morocco or whatever. I mean, so he seemed to, the luck always seemed to be on his side somehow. Yeah. So
he was probably he was the most involved person in the Holocaust that was never brought to justice.
Right. So next topic, anything else you want to talk about in terms of the photos, or do you want to, because you gave me plenty of links and references, what would you like to go through on these?
Well, there's a lot of photos, and you already showed them, or maybe not all of them, but most of them. With Husseini and the 13th Mountain Division of the SS, which was basically his SS division, and it was comprised of Muslim volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you had the Pope doing the Nazi salute like this. You wouldn't hear the end of it ever. Here you've got the grand leader of Palestine, the religious and political leader of Palestine, a major figure, doing the Nazi salute over and over. There's video of him doing it. We just played it earlier. And no one, but on Facebook, I have been banned about 4 times for posting this picture and other pictures like it. That's why I stopped using Facebook. I kept posting these photos on Facebook, and I'd automatically get a 2-week ban.
That's why I'm not on Facebook anymore.
Yeah, me too. It was pointless. I mean, I get a 2-week ban, then a 4-week ban, then a 6-week, then 2 months, and then that's just how it goes.
Yeah, you can show some of the other pictures.
Yep. That's him with the SS. You can see the death's head, the eagle insignia. That's all.
Yeah, and he's demonstrating the weapons. There's another photo of him demonstrating an artillery piece.
Yes, that's on the bottom. It's one of these on the bottom. Let me get that for you.
I couldn't get that. Sadly, I couldn't get that without the text.
Yeah, some of these, but you can go. I found a whole lot of photos. There's hundreds of photos, thousands on the Bundesarchiv website, which you can actually get.
They're actually this guy was trying to sell that photo, but they're actually in the public domain.
Yes. Yeah, no, I found them on the Bundesarchiv. You can see
and this is like a recruitment poster. 13. Waffengebirgsdivision der SS Hancha, kroatische Nummer 1.
Yeah, 13th Mountain Division of the SS Hancha. Yeah, I think it refers to the sword.
Hancha is the sword you see.
Yeah, the sword there. Yeah, so these are Muslim Nazis, and the whole plan of them was to obviously mostly generally hunt down, the Jews and do bad things to them. And
they were responsible for it's horrible things. They were responsible for exterminating 90% of the Jewish population in Bosnia.
Wow. I mean, and this doesn't get talked about. You can't talk about it,
And that was the purpose of that SS division. They were not sent to any front. They weren't fighting any battles at any front. They were at home, well, their home, and tasked with exterminating Jews. That was their purpose.
So, I mean, and these are the Palestinians. I mean, there are flags. Hold on, let me see if I can find those flags, because I've got a couple of photos let me see. I'll find those flags in a minute. Here we go. Here's one of them. There are 2 of them. I don't have both of them here right now, but this is the flag. Oh, there they are. It's both. Hold on. I'll get this in a second. My bad.
This is Palestine. Yeah.
This is, notice for the audience, look at these 2 flags. It says here Palestina, and here it says Palestina. That's Palestine. And notice the Nazi eagle and the Nazi symbol.
Is that the Muslim Brotherhood Party? Because they had a political party.
This apparently is the Nazi youth flag of Palestine. I think the one is the Nazi youth flag, and I'm not sure what the other one is, but one of the flags is for the Nazi youth. I believe these are Brits who, after the war, captured these flags or whatever, and they were showing them to show people. But these are Palestinian Nazi flags.
Those could be the flags of the Muslim Brotherhood Party, because they had a political party, and it was modeled after the National Socialists.
That is crazy. But so just so the audience can tell, these are Palestinian Nazi flags. The Palestinians were literally Nazis. I mean, these guys volunteered. They were Nazis. They were literally Nazis during the war. Here's another one captured by the Israelis, another Nazi flag captured by the Israelis. Now, I will let you know that the Israelis weren't fighting in Spain. They weren't fighting on Mars or on the moon or in the UK. They were fighting. Yeah, you can see the Nazi flags here, the Nazi flag here. Again, a copy of the previous flag. These are Israeli troops that have captured these Nazi flags on their territory.
Right. So we have to explain that was well after World War II, right?
Yes.
And they still had, basically Nazi organizations continued to exist in that place.
Yeah. So now, just hold it. Celtic Wolf, if you don't mind, I can do without the conspiracy theory that's all distracting. For instance, no one laments that when the Spanish went to South America, the South American natives gave the Spanish malaria and murdered hundreds of them. Because, as you know, germ warfare was something that South American natives did all the time. And in fact, in Africa, the Brits were murdered by those nasty, evil Africans by germ warfare, by diseases that are endemic to Africa. So, no one laments that. No one goes that, look how nasty these Africans and South Americans were for murdering these nice white people, but with disease. You see, you can turn that argument around. It works both ways. No, when you go to a place where you don't have natural immunity, drinking the water can kill you. Ask anyone who's been to India about things, or anyone who's been to Bali, they call it Bali belly. You simply don't have natural immunity to the diseases, the viruses in the water and in the food in those locations, or to the insect bites. So this is not spreading smallpox, because the same claims are made in South Africa. The same claims are made by historically illiterate people everywhere. It's simply, you go to a place, you don't have immunity, you die from the disease. It's called normality. It's called life. It's just how it is. So this is not they deliberately seeded. It's no. That is simply propaganda. So if you don't mind, stop. Back to you.
Well, what do you want me to talk about?
Yeah. So okay. So this is after the war. Yeah. This is in Jerusalem, I believe, in the south of Jerusalem. Yeah, Katamon in the south of Jerusalem. So this was the intention. The Palestinians were Nazis. There's no argument about that. The evidence from World War II is there. Yep. So hold on. Let's go to some of the others that you had. So was there any other documents or things you want to tackle? Because you sent me quite a bit of material.
I still have those books, but maybe
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe we can talk about them.
Up to you. Yeah.
Because that would be, Amin al-Husseini was given actually directly by Hitler himself. He was given the title of honorary Aryan. So he was, even though ethnically, I don't think the Israelis and the Palestinians ethnically, I don't think they're much different. They're pretty much the same, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? But they're both Semites, right?
I guess in theory, but don't forget the Arabs invaded what we call Israel today in the 690s. They invaded, they conquered, and they were there until the 1900s. So of course there would be inbreeding between, not inbreeding, but intermingling between those. So what you have is, you now have obviously shared genetic ancestry between the Arabs and the Jews who lived there. Don't forget, the Jews were expelled. They traveled, they went to Europe, they went to various places. They've come back, but they were always in the region. They never entirely left. But the Arabs were also in the region, and the Ottomans had conquered that place for several hundred years. But if you look at the Arab ancestry, their, shall we say, shared genetic ancestry with the Jews starts obviously in the 7th century. Starts very late.
Right.
And
of course,
we're
not. Yeah, I know. Of course, before that, there's a there's a difference there. Of course, because I know. Muslims claim to be like the true descendants, but of course that's questionable. But that's not what I mean. I mean, nowadays genetically there wouldn't be all that much of a difference.
Probably not, no,
right?
No.
I mean, at least in many cases, right? So that's my point.
Yeah, don't forget, Judaism was the dominant religion in.
Yet
At one
Husseini,
point, Judaism was the dominant religion in Arabia 50% of the people in
Right.
Arabia at one point were Jews, so which means there was a mingling with the Arabs too.
Right,
So
sure. Yeah, then that's my point. There's a difference of religion, but genetically, I mean, from his Husseini's religion is very different from Judaism, of course. But genetically, Husseini is probably not all that much different from the other people living in the area, including some of the Jews, right? Yet Husseini gets considered by the Nazis an Aryan. He's considered an Aryan, right? Whereas the other people from that area, whose religion happens to be Judaism, but who genetically might not be all that different, they're considered the enemy, right? And so it got me thinking. It got me to realize this is a label. You think the Nazis were racist, and they were. Of course, they were racist. And I want to repeat that again. I'm very much against the Nazis. I'm very much against racism, and of course they were racist. But it goes beyond that. It was a label. If someone supported them, if someone was important and supported them, he gets labeled an Aryan, no matter what his ethnicity actually is. And if someone, and that's why I have these other.
You make a good point. I understand your point now. Yes.
If someone, and that's why I have these other books, if someone is important but he opposes the Nazis, he gets labeled a Jew, even though he's actually, like Hitler, an Austrian. And this brings us to Kalergi. Here I have Kalergi's books.
Yeah, just pause 1 second. You've got Zargam 12, who is using very poor logic, clearly hasn't been to school. He says it's sheer nonsense to single out the Mufti. It's like me saying 1 + 1 is equal to 2, and then you go, it's sheer nonsense to cherry pick answers. The correct answer is that the Nazi Mufti of Palestine was a Nazi. That
I don't know. 1 + 1 is 2, but if 2 and 2 is 5, I would think 1 and 1 would be 3, right?
Yeah, but apparently picking the right answer is cherry picking. You see, knowing the correct answer and identifying the problem is cherry picking. So it's sheer nonsense. There were many who collaborated with Hitler and the Nazis, including Grandpa Bush. Now, these are false equivalences. The Nazi Mufti moved to Germany, volunteered as a Nazi, aided and abetted Hitler, raised hundreds of thousands of troops, inspired something like 600,000 Muslims to join the Nazis. So in other words, Muslims were Nazis. Muslims were actively Nazis. Muslims actively went to kill Jews.
Look what he says. Yeah. Look what word he says after UK. I haven't heard that word, nuts, apparently.
Zionists. Well, I don't have no idea. King Edward VIII. Did King Edward VIII move to Nazi Germany, become a general in Hitler's army, and then raise troops to go and kill? I don't know. I don't think it's the same. I think your equivalence is a little stupid.
That he's trying. His argument here is supposed to be that no. The true Nazis would actually be the Jews. That's what he's saying. I don't agree with that, but that's the argument he's trying to make. I say this argument is BS. And it follows Husseini's tactic. Husseini used these kinds of tactics, and that's the kind of tactics we still see today, used by Hamas and other Muslim terrorist organizations. They're using his tactics, and he popularized those tactics. And that's in the sources, and we're going to talk about that. We'll try to make them public in some form. But when he committed genocide, when he was head of Palestine, and he committed genocide against the Jews, he told the people who murdered the Jews on his order to then take photos of the murdered victims and claim that those were Muslims, like we already established.
Oh my golly!
Ethnically, they don't look much different. So that's
You make a good point. I understand your point well now. That was well said. Yes.
And he seems to be a follower of Husseini, because the guy who made that comment just now uses the exact same tactic today. And he literally said, no, the true Nazis would be the Jews. It's the exact same tactic. Commit atrocities, support the Nazis, be anti-Semitic, and commit these horrible crimes, commit these horrible atrocities, and then say, no, I'm not the Nazi. The Jews are the Nazis, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. There were definitely, yeah. I mean, look at the moment. You know what's crazy? Look at the contradiction when they say the Jews are the Nazis, and then they turn around and say in the next breath, Hitler was right about these guys. Hold on, these guys are the Nazis. Hitler was right about the Jews. Those are two directly contradictory statements. You can't have the Jews are the Nazis, but then Hitler was right about the Jews, and Hitler was the Nazi trying to kill the Jews, because they would then be the same thing, obviously. And then you say no, they're different. So yeah, the story is just propaganda. It's contradictory. It's senseless. It's just lying because you support this genocide. Unfortunately, YouTube is never going to monetize this. I'm going to get another letter from YouTube saying,
"Oh, you can be happy if they don't suspend your channel. No, forget about monetization. No.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I get YouTube. Me and YouTube have a lot of fun together. They like, yeah, thanks. We don't like this video.
Maybe we should redo this and do like a censored version, but that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Yeah, look, I mean, so getting just to cargo crew, no, they're not exactly genetically identical. You can tell the difference. You can tell there was a merger around the 7th, 8th century. So apparently geneticists, there's a lot of new studies on this from Harvard, Princeton, and other places. I've actually looked at them recently, but you can tell there was a genetic sort of merger. Obviously, the invasions of Israel in the 7th century by the Muslims. But then you also know that the 90% of the Jews come from apparently 4 females. So what you've got the same genetic markers within these Jews. And there's a lot of fake genetic studies out there as well, or genetic studies that are deliberately misinterpreted. And but also there are lots of new studies. So don't buy everything that you are told. And yeah, don't let me get started on, almost 99% of everything I read that's popular on YouTube or whatever sources on the Jews, it's just completely blatantly false. So yeah, there's plenty. For instance, I'll give you a story. In Warsaw, the mayor of Warsaw, they say he was, no, not the mayor. When the Nazis took over Warsaw, they destroyed the city. They bombed it to bits, and they came in, and they told the head of the Jewish organization, or they told him, you need to select people. We will kill you and your family if you don't choose people to put on the train. So you need to choose those. You need to make the selection as to who you send to the death camps you put on the trains. And he was told to do this, or he and his family would be the next on the trains. Now, I believe ultimately he killed himself because he couldn't deal with it. But of course, if you read the far right, and if you read all of these the anti-Semites, they'll tell you, no, he collaborated. He was an ally. He worked with them. And it's just, it's ridiculous. People have no understanding of the problems that people really had, and they just misinterpret, misconstrue, and so on. It's just, yeah, and then this is how it is. It's the least charitable, most dishonest interpretations always. Yeah. So yeah, it's nonsense with the. So yeah. So where were we? To go to the next point? There's so much material. So to the next point, Emmanuel.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about? I wanted, if it's okay, I'm going to talk about Kalergi.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Right. So Husseini was considered an Aryan, even though he wasn't German at all, and Kalergi, who was an Austrian, so same country, the painter guy was from, right?
Yep.
But he was labeled Jewish, and the reason for that is simply because he opposed. Well, he didn't. You can see that very well in this book here. Again, this is an original. This is from.
Sorry, oops. So show it again.
This is published in 1931. So shortly before Hitler came to power. and it's original. You can see it. Of course, it's in German,
Stalin
but
called.
in here he actually opposes socialists, but he doesn't make a distinction between mainstream socialists and national socialists. He opposes them both, and that's why Hitler um, Hitler wrote a sequel to Mein Kampf. A lot of people don't know that. It
The
was
second book,
unpublished
yeah.
because it's utter crap. But the main purpose of his second book, of his sequel to Mein Kampf, um, was to attack Kalergi. That was his whole point, and he went after Kalergi heavily. But of course, he wasn't talking about any of his arguments. Nazi propaganda attacked him, claiming he would be Jewish, even though that's utter nonsense. He's basically from the same area as the painter guy was, right? And yeah, okay, well, he was also part Japanese, but being Japanese
Mhm.
again, that should be fine, right? They were our allies, right? So being Japanese should be fine. Being Austrian should be fine. And his religion was Catholicism, right? Yet he was labeled as being Jewish, and not just that. Um, it was actually Hitler and the National Socialists who came up with this whole propaganda that a lot of neo-Nazis like to use to this day about his alleged plan. And that's why I got his books. And I looked through all of them. There is no plan in there. This is not
So,
the whole thing
so,
about about his plan is Nazi propaganda. It's not in his books. All that
so,
he wrote was just criticizing the Nazis.
so Kalergi criticized the Nazis, and as a reaction to that, the Nazis smeared him as a Jew, and they smeared him as someone who was intent on disrupting the West with this plan. So they
Right.
smeared
They,
him
they,
as.
they didn't just label him as any Jew. They labeled him as like this elite Jew with his evil plan allegedly, and his plan would be to exterminate the Germans by getting Jews to marry them. It's utter nonsense. He never talks about anything like that in any of his books. He just criticizes all
So they
socialists.
smeared
But
him in an effort to simply use that as propaganda to turn people against the Jews.
right, to get, well, on the one hand, to get rid of Kalergi and his criticism of National Socialism, and on the other hand, to use it as a justification for the Holocaust, quote unquote justification.
So to generate race hatred, so Hitler's second book is really Hitler's hit piece against Kalergi. Just like Mein Kampf was a reaction against the Jews, his screed, his manifesto against the Jews, this became his hit piece against Kalergi
Right.
in your article.
Right. Yeah, that's the point I make in my article. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Kalergi. He was an Austrian Catholic, and he made the evil plan to exterminate the German folk by having the Jews marry them. And apparently, this plan, you say, is everywhere in his books, but it is hidden so well that no one can find them in his books. So after World War II, and after he had already died, and the Jews in Germany had mysteriously disappeared, he then changed it to Muslims, even though Muslims are
That's
not a
what
race.
neo-Nazis argue today, because for some reason the Jews mysteriously disappeared in Germany. It's a mystery. Wonder where they went. Well, that's no, that's apparently what the neo-Nazis must be wondering, right? So they can't really target Jews anymore because they're basically not here anymore. So instead they now go after the Muslims. So I want to make clear, I'm not against anybody. I'm not a racist. I'm against racism. And of course I'm also against racism against Arabs as well. But now the neo Nazis using that to target Arabs actually.
Yeah, but that said, I mean, there are threats. There are ideological threats. There are certain groups also carry certain ideas with them, certain cultural predilections. They tend to vote along, and they tend to make decisions along cultural and religious lines. And of course, anyone, as long as they're not white, can show pride in their ethnicity and in their religion as well as in their culture. Unless you're white, then that's not allowed.
Yeah, well, Lloyd, you're allowed to say that because you're not white, but I can't say that. So
yeah, but YouTube gives me hell fools. Trust me on that. I get YouTube
but
sends me a little note.
actually that's not really. I'm how shall I explain this? I'm really not against anybody. I'm not against
Yeah.
people from the Middle East at all, and I'm not
No,
against Arabs.
no, certainly. Look, I mean,
And I'm sure you're not either.
no,
So
look, we
maybe we
obviously
should
don't
get that
hate
clear,
anyone, but
I don't think either of us has anything against Arabs, right?
no, obviously not. I've lived 11 years in that part of the world, and I've met some very nice people, really great people. But I think also it is clear that you are having, colloquial or not, there is a replacement going on. There is an undermining of Western social culture. There is an infiltration of ideas that are negatively impacting the West. And I think that one has to, at some point, assert one's culture, assert dominance, and the insistence that, look, Germany has the right to remain ethnically German as well as culturally German. And same for the UK. And, and I mean, because Islam is supremacist. And if these people are following an ideology that's incompatible, at some point you have to rein it in. And like in Spain, there's a town that recently declared that Muslims will not be allowed to celebrate things like Eid and so on. They won't have these ceremonies. And that is their right to say that, because this is the dominant culture. They're not being respected. They are not, these ceremonies are not being done in a respectful manner. They're being done in a supremacist manner. And at some point, I think you're going to see more and more that the tolerance will diminish. I think we're already starting to see that. It'll happen very rapidly, that there'll be a snapping point where you'll find that tolerance will run out. And I'm afraid that that's starting to happen. And these people who come from the Middle East were unfortunately heavily inculcated with these Nazi ideas as well.
When I was younger, I used to know a lot of Holocaust survivors, but they weren't living in Germany anymore. But they were thinking of they and their family were thinking of going back. But most of them never did, and in a lot of cases, the reason for that was actually, well, if you ask them, they would say, oh, well, there's a resurgence of Semitism in Germany, right, but what they actually mean and what they don't tell you right away is actually they're not afraid of the majority of Germans becoming anti-Semitic again. They're afraid of the Muslims in Germany being anti-Semitic, and that's why they don't go back. And so, in a way, I feel to this day, because there are some Muslims in Germany who are anti-Semitic. So I feel, in a way, to this day, they are helping the Nazis to accomplish their goal, because their goal, unlike Husseini's goal, the Nazis' original goal was just to expel the Jews from Germany, and that they accomplished. Because there are basically almost no Jews in Germany anymore, and the ones that fled don't come back, precisely because of the considerable amount of anti-Semitic Muslims now living in Germany. So that's a problem.
Yeah. Look, it should be noted that Islam is inherently anti-Semitic. I'll give just two examples. It's not the focus. This is Sunnah.com. This is from Sahih al-Bukhari, fighting for the cause of Allah, jihad. So this is jihad. The hour, this is the eschatology. This is the eschatology of Islam. So Christians believe that at the end times, Jesus will come back and there will be judgment and people will be cast into hell, and those who don't, those who haven't repented and those who do will go to heaven, right? And all of that. For the Muslims, there will be the end times as well. Muhammad will come back. Jesus will come back at the right hand of Muhammad as Muhammad's servant, as a good Muslim. Jesus will then destroy all the churches because they refuse to convert to Islam. He will kill the Jews because they refuse to convert to Islam. He will kill the Christians. He will kill the pigs because there'll be no need for pigs because everyone's a Muslim. The Christians will be killed because they have not converted to Islam. But there's one prerequisite for the Islamic end times, is that the Muslims must murder all the Jews. It says here, The hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews. And the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him. Right? We get that. That's pretty explicit. Then, of course, you have this here, the affair of, this is from the Sirah of Muhammad. This is the most authoritative biography of Muhammad. This is the Sirat Rasul Allah. The affair of Muayyisa and Huwayyisa. The apostle said, now I believe the apostle is Muhammad. I think we all are clear on that. Kill any Jew that falls into your power. So thereupon, Muayyisa bin Masud leapt upon Ibn Sunayna, a Jewish merchant with whom they had social and business relations, and killed him. Huwayyisa was not a Muslim, though he was the elder brother. And when Muayyisa killed him, Huwayyisa began to beat him, saying, You enemy of Allah, why did you kill him when much of the fat in your belly comes from his wealth? Muayyisa answered, Had the one who ordered me, that's Muhammad, had the one who ordered me to kill him ordered me to kill you, I would have cut your head off. He said that this was the beginning of Huwayyisa's acceptance of Islam. The brother replied, By Allah, if Muhammad had ordered you to kill me, you would have killed me? He said, Yes, by Allah. Had he ordered me to cut off your head, I would have done so, he exclaimed. So he exclaimed, the elder brother exclaims, By Allah, a religion which can bring you to do this is marvelous. And he became a Muslim.
Yeah, so Husseini, of course, knew all that. He was a Muslim scholar. He knew all that, and he was just, putting into practice what's already in the Sunnah.
Yeah. So this is it. So hold on a second. Nazgul I was reading the chat and Celtic said nothing wrong. Celtic is talking out of his little bum. Okay, so I put Celtic in timeout for 30 minutes because half lies are complete truths. No. Half truths are complete lies, right? And he was telling a lot of half truths and misrepresentations and other issues. So really, I do not tolerate that here. I've covered all of those issues, all the books he spoke of, all the topics. I've covered this at length, hours worth on the channel. So yeah, I'm not having any of that. And when you say the US supported the Nazis, that's a very broad statement. Like everybody, even like Uncle Bob or, Farmer Brown or the guys.
The people who fought the Nazis in World War II who supported the Nazis.
Yeah, I know, exactly. This is ridiculous. I mean, you guys make very broad statements, and then of course, that's just propaganda. So if you're going to keep that up, you're going to get the same treatment. I'm not your friend. I don't know you, and I don't care what you think, because what you think is wrong. It's a misrepresentation of the facts and of the truth. It's just propaganda. It's not nuanced. It's not specific. It's just nonsense. So yeah, exactly. First the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. Back to you. I mean, this is crazy stuff, and people don't talk much about this. What's the next thing you'd like to touch on? Because you gave me so much.
Well, I have there were some books I couldn't some books I couldn't find on the internet, and I could only find in physical form. But some books I couldn't find. Well, I could find in physical form, but they were too expensive, so I couldn't afford them. So but they were on the internet, so I put them in the stuff I sent you. And there's some historical German books. This wasn't the only book, right? There was a lot of books in support of Husseini. In support of the Muslims. The Nazis published a lot of books in support of Husseini and in support of the Muslims and Islam in general. They loved Islam. There's a lot of books like that, and I put a bunch of other books like that in the folder. And I read through them. Well, I didn't read all of it, mostly because it made me sick. Because it was horrible stuff. It was very anti-Semitic, and just always the point was to basically try and justify the Holocaust. So horrible stuff. but what I noticed is, and that's what I was trying to get at when I talked about Kalergi as well. Over and over again, and Husseini does that as well. But the other authors do that too. There's one book in particular. It's in a folder called Schwert des Islam, Sword of Islam, and that book makes that argument as well. They don't define, and that surprised me because that goes against what we're being taught about the National Socialists. They don't define being Jewish as a race. They don't exactly define it as a religion either. They define it as a soul. Over and over again, these National Socialists who wrote books in support of Islam talk about a Jewish soul. So, and that's why Husseini can be an Aryan. That's why Kalergi can be a Jew, because it's actually not about your ethnicity. It's about having a Jewish soul, or about having a soul. The determining factor is your soul. So Husseini is an Aryan because his soul is considered an Aryan soul.
Mm-hmm.
And Jews are considered Jews because they have a Jewish soul, allegedly. That's their logic, and that's why Kalergi, even though he's Austrian and Catholic, is a Jew, because he's considered to have, but because he criticized the Nazis, he's considered to have a Jewish soul. It's a Jewish spirit. And these books, and including Husseini, again and again, talk about having a Jewish spirit, having a Jewish soul.
That makes perfect sense, because you'll find like BLM people who are all communists and all that, or unwitting communist aiders and abettors, they will talk about, there's the whole concept of being politically black, right? Then you're the right color. Even if you're white, you're politically black, right? That's how you gain, reward or whatever. And of course, I've been accused of being a white supremacist. Why? Because I have the wrong opinions. So therefore, I'm not black by the fact that I'm born in Africa and my parents are black. Therefore, I'm black. But it's because I don't have the right opinions. I'm not politically black. So therefore, I'm a white supremacist. I get it. It's exactly the same thing that happens today.
Right, and that's very well pointed out, and in the book Schwert des Islams, Sword of Islam, which is in the folder, he explains that very explicitly. Muslims are basically Aryans because they have an Aryan spirit, because they support the National Socialists, or at least at that time they did, right? Thanks to Husseini. So they're considered to have an Aryan spirit. And he goes on to extend that people like Kalergi, and again, that's mentioned in Schwert des Islam as well. People can be ethnically German or ethnically Austrian, but if they don't align with the right ideology, they're considered to have a Jewish soul, and they're considered Jews, even though ethnically they're not Jews.
Right. Yeah, no, so it's a lot of it is just myth making. I just want to show a couple of things. This is SS leader Heinrich Himmler. He dedicated this photograph.
Can I still say something about? I still want to say something about what we just said. Can I do that?
Sure, please go ahead.
I feel this comes from Gnosticism. I can talk with you. I can talk about that. Right?
100%.
We talked about that previously. We talked about Gnosticism, and you talked about Gnosticism, and I talked about Gnosticism. This comes from Gnosticism. Basically, in Gnosticism, Jehovah is considered the demiurge. Basically, he's their devil. They have like they basically inverted Christianity.
Use John 8:44 as their justification.
Yeah, right. So so to them, Jehovah is evil. And Lucifer, on the other hand, he's the good guy, right? So it's an inversion, right? So they consider Jehovah evil, and so of course they also consider the people who believe in Jehovah, mainly the Jews. Again, they consider them to be evil. That's but it's not because of their ethnicity; it's because they believe in Jehovah.
Right, and this view, oddly enough, this hatred of Jews is very much tied up with the belief of Martin Luther. If you read through Martin Luther's book, you start to learn that. Obviously, it's very disturbing. People don't want to do that. I mean, people who follow Protestant.
It's even worse. It's even worse if you read it in German. I didn't make it through it because it's.
Send me a German copy. I should read it in German.
Yeah, it's worse. It's worse. Trust me, it's so much worse in German, and it has drawings too. It's.
Oh wow! Yeah, that man was disturbing, and I mean, he clearly had Gnostic ideas, as did Calvin. I mean, here you've got the head of the SS, right? I think Himmler, to His Eminence, the Grand Mufti, as a remembrance. I mean, were these guys talking about, let me see, the thing that Hitler is known for, or did they talk about golf scores, or their favorite wines? It's obvious there's something very, very wrong. You can see the guy with his German salute here, the popular German salute.
That's not. I know. I realize why you're calling it a German salute, but actually, that's not even. That's as German as Aryan. I mean, it's not German.
Yeah, but he's hiding. But he's doing the Heil troops, right?
Yeah, well, it's a Roman salute. If anything, it's a Roman salute. It's not German. It's not even German. I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole National Socialist movement is based on myths, right, and legends. On a pure origin and a mythical place that never existed and a rewritten history in it.
Right.
I mean,
and that also comes from Gnosticism. We talked about that. The whole spiel about Aryans comes from Madame Blavatsky.
Yeah.
Oh, at least she popularized it in modern times in Germany.
I will talk about that soon as well, because you get into Crowley and then she features as well. And I mean, this man here with these Nazis at this one death camp, he was the Mufti of Jerusalem during the British Mandate period, 21 to 37, and he never gets talked about. You'd think Muslims would proudly talk about their Nazi Mufti, right?
And he was the head of Iraq for 1 month.
And they had a coup which put in a Nazi-friendly government. Crazy stuff. The Nazi Connection to Islamic Terrorism: Adolf Hitler and Hajj Amin al-Husseini by Chuck Morse. There's just a few things I should probably get to here. Yasser Arafat at Amin al-Husseini's funeral with the Mufti of Lebanon. So he was called Yasser Arafat's uncle. We're not quite sure if it was his literal uncle or a metaphorical uncle, but in some cultures they'll call you uncle or grandfather or whatever it is. But yeah, they certainly were familiar with each other. They weren't strangers.
Because he's his follower. Arafat is his follower.
Mentor, basically. You can see here the little Nazi thing.
No. Husseini is the mentor of Arafat.
Yes, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, maybe I just said that. You can see here a little, I can't remember who, I think this is the propagandist, Goebbels, could be Goebbels.
No, that's not Goebbels. I don't recognize him. Okay,
yeah. So I'll skip the quotes. You can see here they are having, the whole little, you can see the SS logo and the Nazi symbol up here. This guy is all over the place. I mean, there's no denying it. And I think
the Nazis loved him. They loved him. Because he was even more extreme than them, actually.
Yeah. Michael says, can you do a deep dive into the links between Nazis and the Muslim Brotherhood? I've thought of doing that. I've just so many projects. I have limited time. I have a job. I have limited time. I mean, I'd be happy to look into this, but it takes time and it costs money, oddly enough. I've got to pay for resources to get things and stuff. Running a YouTube channel is not free. Believe it or not, it actually costs money. There are also things I want to do. I have a question for the audience while I'm here, and thank you for being here. Thank you for all the support. I really do appreciate it. And thank you, Emmanuel, for coming on. I mean, this is a fascinating topic. It's very little covered. It's not that well known, and I think it deserves more attention. We need to bring this to the attention of the world and to deal with this whole Palestine issue. But look, I'm looking for a graphic designer. I'm looking for someone to help me do some branding, work with the channel, improve what I'm doing on YouTube, my X account, and also I want to eventually get to a website. So there's various things I need to do, and first I need to find a graphic designer. So if someone knows someone, I had recently engaged with someone, but they let's just say they disagreed with my take on sola scriptura, and yeah, they don't like the way that I view the history, and the stuff I presented on Martin Luther has made them very uncomfortable, and so that goes out the window. So yeah, but so anywho, I'm looking to do some. If you know a graphic designer, please let me know. I'd like to work with someone, and I'm not asking to have it done for free, but yeah, so you can see this Hajj Amin al-Husseini. Oh, yep, the Hanshar division. There's lots of yeah. There's just so much evidence of this guy and his influence. And yeah, we should maybe do the influence that he has between him and the Muslim Brotherhood. There's definitely a link. It's not like there's no link. Is this a true quote? Christians live under the delusion of a Jewish-based myth. This good Catholic saying this stuff, apparently. They worship a Jewish deity. They believe the Jews are God's chosen people. Christians cannot condemn Jews because they would be condemning their own faith. How can the most insidious enemy of all time be the very people you base and trust your life upon? You can't criticize the Jews when you're hoping to spend eternity with a Jewish God. Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf. Yeah. Yeah. You there, Emmanuel? Is this this is a genuine quote, right, from Mein Kampf?
You know what? I've read through it, but I haven't exactly memorized it.
Yeah, the sentiment
I'm
is
not
there.
a big fan of the book. The book is utter crap. It's very hard to read through, especially in German, because Hitler was not very good at writing.
I read like 5 pages of it, and I was like, man, this is I couldn't do it. But yeah, again, the flags of Palestine, Nazi flags of Palestine. The Nazis affiliate with the Arabs to boycott Palestine goods. You know, I need to be posting this on my X account. There's plenty of this stuff. Yeah.
Well, okay. You might be able to get away with posting it on X, but if you post it anywhere else,
yeah,
it's dangerous.
Yeah. Daniel, I know that cartoon. Yeah. Yes, Tick History. He's taken a break. I believe you're a friend of Tick, or at least you are.
I've spoken with him in the past. Yeah, but right now he's like hibernating. He doesn't do anything right now.
Yeah, I had the feeling that the research was killing him. The research was draining him. He was doing too much research. And
yeah, he's very good. He's basically at least when it comes to the history of Germany and the history of World War II. He's the best historian I know, and he's actually he studied history. He actually has a degree in history, so he's an actual historian. And he's when it comes to these subjects, he's the best historian I know because his stuff is very well resourced. He and very well researched, and he uses the original sources it's very good. But yeah, it's the amount of work that goes into his stuff is immense.
Yeah, I thought
because it's so well researched.
Yeah, one video that he did, he spoke about the strain he goes through doing the research, and I realized it was killing him. I mean, I think I'm a little bit more efficient. I've learned to do things efficiently over the years. I've improved, but yeah, I saw the strain when he discussed it. Yeah, so on to the next topic. We can start winding down. It's like an hour and a half, but we can always discuss again. We can always talk about another topic similar. But is there anything else you want us to address while we're here?
No, I think as you said, we spoke a lot, and we mentioned. I think we got it covered pretty. I think we got it covered okay.
Yeah, so hopefully the audience. What would you like the audience to do with this knowledge? What we've shared. What do you think we can do with this? How can this help us? We're involved in an information war. In that, there's a prophet. His name is Alex Jones. Now, I don't agree with everything the guy says, but there's certain things that he says that are true. When he said they're making the frogs gay, he kind of was right, you know?
Isn't he a comedian though, or is that a conspiracy theory?
I don't know, but he certainly
I
has
mean,
said things that,
especially when he talks about that kind of stuff with the frogs, I'm thinking he's gotta be a comedian.
yeah, but he said things. I mean, it's just that it's weird how the guy said things. I've been following him since I discovered him in the late 90s. And there's things that the man has said that you're like, yeah, he wasn't
Yeah,
wrong.
I've been following even when he was still in his previous incarnation.
Yeah, when he had hair and all that. Yeah, I know. So yeah,
No,
look, yeah, true.
because there is this theory that he's actually a comedian.
Yeah, I mean, no, look, I mean, I'm very careful, but there is a comedian that's a Jewish comedian that stands up for Palestine. The guy's a complete whack job, you know. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, what do you think the audience should do with all of this, and how can this help us? I mean, there's so much information to indict the Palestinians, and looking at their lineage and history and the connection directly
but what I learned, during the bit of research that I did was how important it is to actually rely on actual, real, historical, original books. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because just asking ChatGTP isn't gonna cut it.
Yeah. No, the AIs are, you have to be so careful with them. You're right. Google as well. There's certain topics Google doesn't want to give you the data. I've noticed some things, and there's clearly bias in these engines, very, very clearly. Yeah. So for the audience, what have you gained from this? What have you learned? I mean, I hope that you've learned something. I hope this has given you a perspective, and that you realize that Palestine has roots that they've got both feet literally in the Nazis. I mean, it's not even in doubt. There's so many things. If you look at the amount of these Nazis that moved to the Middle East and settled there as Muslims, got new identities and were protected there, didn't ever see the inside of a jail cell or the Nuremberg trials because the Arabs protected the Nazis. You need to think about this. People are supporting people that are complicit with what the Nazis did. It's crazy stuff.
Maybe people still have questions. I don't know.
Yeah. So any questions? Yeah, any last questions before we close down? Yeah. True, he's an infotainer, granted. He provides information as entertainment. Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be careful with all these sources, granted. But there are things the guy said that people laughed at, but they kind of come true. There are things. I mean, I haven't watched him in years, probably a decade, but in the early 90s, early 2000s, I used to watch some of his stuff. And he said things that just seemed, when he spoke about, it's like the trafficking in young girls, that kind of thing. The guy wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong.
Yeah, but the problem the problem is that if Alex talks about it, no one is really going to take it serious.
That's the problem. But you know what? A prophet is never loved in his own city or whatever it was. Look at the guy called Romy Tobinson, right? There's a very famous UK guy called Romy Tobinson. 20 years ago, he was vilified. They've tried to everything, including having him jailed, isolated, and even having him ended permanently. And now everything that he said is true, is proven true, without a doubt. The man has stood on principle for 2 decades, and now he has been proven 100% correct. So we know there's a problem, and these people have been right. Now, sure, Alex Jones, you can point to errors and mistakes, granted, entertainment, and he was a humble water filter salesman for a long time, okay? If you have a Berkey water filter, you need to thank Mr. Jones for helping you buy that. Water filtration is an important thing. Ask any African who doesn't have, good water supply. He was a humble water filter salesman who somehow fell down a rabbit hole. Okay, but if you look at Romy Tobinson, the guy was 100% right from day one, and now he's proven correct. Yeah, Emmanuel.
Yeah, no. If people don't have any questions anymore, I don't have anything to say.
Thank you, Karan. I wish more people understood this Unholy Alliance. Thanks. No, you're welcome to both Lloyd and Emmanuel. You said, what books do you recommend? There's a question. Notice, which books do you recommend on this alliance? Can you just go through the books you would recommend? I can probably present a few, but yeah.
Well, I kind of made an effort to go to the originals. So I mainly looked at the Nazi propaganda books themselves.
I'll bring up a couple myself.
Yeah.
Nazi Palestine.
So if people are looking for books by historians, I think you might be able to recommend some.
Yeah, I can get a couple. This one, Islam and Nazi Germany's War by David Motadl. So Nazi Palestine, Klaus Michael Malman and Martin Kuppers, but it should be easy to find with the title, Nazi Palestine. Islam and Nazi Germany's War by David Motadl. I think he has a second book out as well on the topic. I have a number of resources. Let me just see. Nazism, let me just look at my Nazism folder. I should have a number of these. Let me see. Yeah, there's a few very bad ones, and there's some really, really good ones.
What the hell kind of book is that?
This is Alfred Rosenberg. Yeah, that's probably this is Rosenberg. He was a Nazi propagandist, and he wrote Complete Claptrap. I mean, but I covered him one time in a series, and I needed to get the book to get some quotes from Rosenberg. It was complete garbage. No, it's total garbage. It's complete garbage. But I was looking for something else. Heinrich Himmler, The Sinister Life of the Head of the SS and Gestapo. Yeah, so those are things that might be helpful. I will look up a couple extra ones here. There is the Hitler of the Holy Land. You can look up one called The Hitler of the Holy Land. I have a couple of references. The Nazi Connection to Islamic Terrorism. Adolf Hitler and Hajj Amin al-Husseini by Chuck Morse. I've got a whole ton of them here. I've got like 50 books listed in my list here, but I can't go through them all, of course. Look for Hitler of the Holy Land, I think, is another title that will be helpful. That's this one. Yeah, David Nussbaum. This might be helpful. Just to get some references. Islam and Nazi Germany's War, we've covered that. Yeah, but that should be enough to start with. There's a couple of really good ones. So I think that should be good to start with. And I can always look up some more. Nazis in the Middle East. Nazis in the Middle East is a good one. There's a whole bunch. There's some brilliant ones by David Dalen as well. Like the Nazi Aryanization of Christianity. There's tons of them, but yeah, those should be enough. Hopefully that helps. I've screenshot.
Oh yeah. Just real quick, and I didn't actually know that for a long time, but the Nazis changed the Bible.
Yes, they did. I have a whole series on that, on how they changed the New Testament. Yeah.
And they had a whole move. They had their own church, basically.
Yeah, no, they did.
They created a whole new Christian movement that in reality wasn't Christian at all.
Yeah, no, agreed. They altered the Bible, they made various changes, and they created their own church, and they were supported by the Lutherans. The Lutherans were very much behind that. So yeah, I covered that in length in my Hitler series. I covered that at great length. I spent a good couple of hours on that, couple of episodes going through that. It is disturbing. And well, thank you very much for Dara Farnsworth. I feel like I struck gold with this video. You're very welcome. Yeah, Husseini. So there's more, I guess, that one could have uncovered, but so there's I've got loads of references. I mean, if we go look here, for argument's sake, if we look here, I'll just show you this. This is my Nazism folder. And this is my list of books. I have 51 items, plus the Hajj Amin al-Husseini stuff. That's another 21 items just on Husseini here. and then I've got 51 books just on Nazism and on various stuff related to that. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Was Hitler Darwinian? Was Hitler Christian? There's whole bunches of stuff. There's some bad books here. There's some good books. There's some bad historians. There's some great historians. It's just that I have to go through all of it for reference, for checking. But yeah, that's it. So hopefully you guys have learned something. And don't forget, Hitler was a vegetarian. Hitler was a liberal. Hitler loved dogs. So if you love dogs, you're a liberal and a vegetarian, you're just like Hitler.
And especially if you use toilet paper, because he used that as well.
Yeah, there's that. So guys, yeah. So guys, I think that wraps this one up. I think it's been really fascinating. We've learned a great deal, very disturbing amount of data. Look, don't let the Muslims fool you, and don't let the propaganda fool you. Use this information, speak about it. I got banned on Facebook multiple times. I can't even post there. But yeah, on X, you have an opportunity, and on YouTube. And I think talk about this. Let people know. The more people see it, the more that they will learn the truth. And don't be afraid to speak the truth. So do your bit. You will influence someone. And it's like little ripples, and eventually it becomes a tidal wave, or it becomes an avalanche. Just speak the truth. That's all. Yeah, final word to you.
Yeah, I know that was beautiful. I agree.
Thank you. Yeah, it brought tears to my eyes. I nearly started crying here listening to myself speak. so H.M. Fox says, dang it, he got me on the dog loving. Yeah, man, that's what I'm here for. So guys, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Emmanuel. This was fascinating, man. Disturbing and fascinating at the same time. It's going to be demonetized, of course. He has his own channel. Where can people find you, Emmanuel?
Yeah, but actually, I just thought about, if YouTube gives you trouble, we can use my channel, because I don't really care about.
Well, I could just stream on Rumble and X alone, not on YouTube. I could just advertise here and just go stream on the other channels. That's also a possibility. So guys, H.M. Fox says, thank you. He says, excellent episode. I'm glad I could see it. Thank you. So guys, that's it. Good night. God bless. And we shall see you again soon.
Bye-bye.